Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I'm your host Ghadi Francis, and this is our weekly show where we bring you all the new developments from one of the world's most volatile regions, West Asia. 70 days and the Israeli attacks are ongoing in Gaza. Yemen's Houthi rebels have vowed to attack and abduct ships in the Red Sea. Israel's ongoing civilian killings have increasingly isolated it. We will discuss all this in the coming 30 minutes, but first, let's take a look at the headlines.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says the United States has a historic responsibility to ensure a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Further warns of the negative regional and global consequences of the conflict. At least 11 people, include a 17-year-old teenager, killed in Israel's latest raids on the Jenin refugee camp in West Bank. In a move aimed at boosting tourism, Iran announced lifting visa requirements for 33 countries, including Saudi Arabia, Russia, and India.
Ripples of the Gaza war are being felt miles away in the Red Sea. Yemen's Houthi Ansarullah rebels have vowed to attack all ships bound for Israel. They call it their response to the atrocities in Gaza. They have attacked at least 3 ships till now, and they have vowed for more. Now this has the West alarmed. How serious is the Houthi threat in the Red Sea? Our next report explains.
Some 2,000 kilometers away from Israel, Yemen's Houthi rebels are attacking ships bound for Israel, moving through the Red Sea. The United States Central Command says the Houthis have attacked at least 3 commercial ships operating in international waters. These attacks involved a combination of explosive drones and anti-ship ballistic missiles. This week, Yemeni rebels targeted a Norwegian-flagged tanker.
The naval forces of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a military operation against the Norwegian ship Strinda, which was carrying oil and heading to Israel. It was targeted with a suitable naval missile. Over the past 2 days, the Yemeni armed forces succeeding in preventing the passage of several ships, which responded to the warnings of the Yemeni naval forces and only targeted the Norwegian ship carrying oil after its crew rejected all warning calls.
While the Houthis claim the oil and chemical tanker Strinda was delivering oil to Israel, the ship's owner said it was headed to Italy with feedstock for biofuel. The attacks, now happening often, have raised an alarm over the threat to shipping through the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb.
It's a small section of the Red Sea around the Bab el-Mandeb where the Houthis have control of the Yemeni coastline from which they can operate. So it's not a general threat throughout the region, and that affects the risk and any knock-on impacts in costs. But
it is a crucial passage. More than 40% of international trade passes through the Bab el-Mandeb. This narrow passage is the world's 3rd largest choke point for oil shipments. More than 6 million barrels pass through it every day, mainly on their way to Europe. The Houthi rebels are currently in control of much of Yemen, but are not recognized internationally. They are part of the Iran-backed so-called Axis of Resistance, a raid against Israel. Houthi and Iranian ties have grown in recent years, but the extent of their partnership is undefined. Over the years, Saudi and United States have accused Iran of arming the Houthis, supplying them with drones, missiles and weapons, a claim Tehran denies. The Houthis meanwhile say they manufacture their drones domestically. The Houthis, limited to Yemen, lack the capabilities to pose a serious threat outside their borders, but they probably have few missiles capable of reaching Israel. As per an Economist report, one of its longest-range missiles, the Burkan 2H, can travel around 1,000 kilometers. This does not even cover half of the distance between Sana'a and Tel Aviv, but it can very well target ships moving towards Israel. With its ship striking agenda, can the Houthis harm Israeli businesses? Can it halt trade via the key route? the Houthi attacks could rather drive up insurance costs. It can force ships to take a longer route around Africa, and that has made the West take note. The United States is now working with its allies to shore up naval defenses in the region.
Hospital, refugee camp, school, there is nowhere safe in Gaza. The situation right now is dire. It is getting worse with every single day as this war stretches. There is no food, no clean water, no medicines. As per the UN, half the population in Gaza, which is around 1 million people, are at risk of starvation. Our next report explains.
Even in death, these Palestinians are not allowed to rest in peace. Israel's recent attacks on the Jabalia refugee camp have damaged the graves of hundreds of Gazans. What you see are marks reportedly left by IDF vehicles. It has been almost 70 days, and the war on Gaza knows no end. The death toll is near 19,000. Half a million people have been injured. Around 1.8 million, that is 80% of the Gaza population, is displaced.
The boy was born early in the war, a little over a month ago. My love, my love.
Baby. Infants, elderly, men and women, all are the casualties in this war. Israel is headstrong on its motive. They want to wipe out Hamas. But it's the civilians who are paying the price. Most of those killed in this Israeli operation are Gazan civilians. The concerns over the collective punishment keeps getting louder. For those living in the besieged strip, the reality is no less than doomsday. People don't know if they will survive another day. And if they do, how will they keep themselves alive with no supplies, no clear water, no real roof on their head?
There is no food or drink. The house is destroyed. There is nothing. There is no money. Please stop the war in us. For God's sake. We are innocent people. We have nothing. We own nothing.
This week, a senior UN official raised alarm over the collapsing humanitarian situation in Gaza.
About half of the population in Gaza are starving, and the needs that we are meeting is really nothing. The humanitarian operation is collapsing. With the chaos, with this active fighting, it's not possible to do the work that is needed to meet these massive needs. And so we need supplies at a completely different scale.
Israel is attacking Gaza in the north, south, and center. One such city is Rafah that was attacked this week. Many were killed. Dozens were dragged out of the rubble. as desperate Gazans cry, "Where is the safe zone?"
Where is the safe zone? The border to Egypt is only 300 meters away. They told us to come from the north to the south. And here we are at the extreme south. Where is the safe zone?
Along with millions of Gazans, near 137 hostages remain in the Strip. This week, Israel reportedly kickstarted its plan to flood all the Gazan tunnels with seawater. They plan to drive out Hamas from the vast underground network, to render its ammunition and supply useless, to drown Hamas militants to death. But what Israel is also afraid of is that in doing so, it will be endangering the lives of hostages who are likely held in the same tunnels. You don't have to search for tragedy in Gaza. It finds you on every street, strewn with trash and stagnant water, desolate and foreboding. It is a dystopian reality that even the best fiction writers cannot imagine.
70 days ago, this war started, but no one knows when it would end, what the future holds for Gaza. Israel has rejected the option of PA ruling the Strip, while the Arab nations refuse any plans of rebuilding before a two-state solution-based plan is kick-started. In our next report, we try to answer one of the hardest questions: what will happen next to Gaza?
The Palestinian territory of Gaza stands in ruins, with a count of nearly 20,000 lives lost so far. 80% of the population is displaced and large tracts of land flattened by Israeli strikes. The October 7 Hamas attack marked a turning point for Gaza. It ignited a war that has no end in sight. For millions of Gazans, the choice is death or displacement. For the rest of the world, the question is, what will Gaza's future be when the war ends? The first option is to have a Palestinian Authority in charge of the city, which for the US would be the Fatah-based group that governs both Palestinian territories, Gaza and West Bank. But Israel does not agree.
There is disagreement about the day after Hamas, and I hope that we will reach an agreement here as well. I would like to clarify my position. I will not allow Israel to repeat the mistake of Oslo. After the great sacrifice of our civilians and our soldiers, I will not allow the entry into Gaza of those who educate for terrorism, support terrorism and finance terrorism. Gaza will be neither Hamastan nor Fatahstan.
Netanyahu has rejected most of the proposals for Gaza, but he has not spelt out any strategy for it either, except for saying that Israel's mission is to eliminate Hamas. The Palestinian administration says this is not possible as Hamas is an integral part of Palestine.
I think it's very important that we should all realize that Hamas is an integral part of the Palestinian political mosaic. And therefore, for Israel to claim that they are going to eliminate Hamas, I think this is something that is totally, first of all, is not going to happen and totally is not acceptable to us.
The Hamas chief voiced the same sentiment in harsher terms.
Any arrangement in Gaza or in the Palestinian cause without Hamas or the resistance factions is a delusion and a mirage. A delusion and a mirage. A delusion and a mirage.
The other proposal is to reconstruct Gaza and hand its administration to an international body. But here too the disagreements are many. This week, Netanyahu told members of the Knesset that Arab nations, particularly the UAE and Saudi, will have to foot the bill for Gaza's reconstruction. Reacting to Netanyahu's proposal, the UAE said the possibility could be considered only if there is a two-state solution on the table. Arab nations have refused to send their troops to Gaza. Speaking at the Doha conference, Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani said no one from the region will send their troops. He also rejected the need for an international force for the city, saying Palestinians shouldn't always be talked about as if they need a guardian. The last and the most controversial option is Israel taking control of the enclave, after sending Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip to be refugees in Egypt. This proposal has been rejected by everyone except the Israeli far right. But given that they are in power and Netanyahu needs their support, it could be a real possibility from the Israeli side. With every passing day, it seems the conflict is adding more chapters. Israel's resolve for a Hamas-free Gaza has set it at war against all Palestinians, a situation that risks further radicalization and the birth of groups that could be deadlier than Hamas itself.
Our next story is from Iraq. It is about people who have been forced outside their homes by droughts, corruption, and poverty. These are the people who we call climate displaced. We tell you about their story and their struggle for sustenance. Take a look.
Living under a ramshackle roof, this father of 10 is one of the many climate victims in Iraq. As a herder and a farmer just a few years ago, Nasser Jabbar lived a decent life in the Iraqi countryside. But a series of back-to-back droughts and poverty pushed him out of his village. Once defined by crops and his strong flock of sheep, Jabbar's life is today marked by unemployment and urban poverty.
There is no water, so we were displaced from our area. I lived near the market to get a job. I used to work in construction. At my age, I worked in construction. My spine was damaged. I had a slipped disc, and I have not been able to work for 3 years.
Jabbar now lives in Nasiriyah, the capital of Iraq's Dikar province. It is a neighborhood that typifies the extreme poverty of Iraq's climate displaced. Jabbar's current town has cracked roads, streets lined with rubble, and heaps of garbage. Nestling between the desolate patches are shelters for the once prosperous farm owners.
When there was water, we used to grow everything on our land, including vegetables, and we lived on that agriculture. But when the water started to dwindle, it would be available for a month, not 2 months, until it stopped completely. We had between 50 and 70 sheep, which we sold to make a living.
Today, Jabbar's 2 elder children support the family, carrying goods to the market. They earn a little less than $4 a day. In the oil-rich country of Iraq, poverty is the only reality for its people. Decades of war and corruption have hollowed the Iraqi civil administration. Climate change-fueled droughts have only made matters worse. Iraq is struggling with massive internal displacement in its wake.
The water shortage and the lack of sufficient water for life caused internal migration within the governorate, and the most significant polarization in the center of the governorate due to its high level of services and the presence of education and health services led to internal migration.
Even in the better-off governorates, unemployment rates are touching the sky. Employment opportunities are menial work. Skilled, high-paying jobs are scarce, just as water is back home for the displaced.
Given that cities in Iraq currently struggle to provide a quality service to its citizens related to destruction of infrastructure and lack of funding to operate and maintain this infrastructure, the cities are unable to provide quality and quantity of services to their populations. As we have seen in climate migration in Iraq, the perception is that new arrivals are adding additional burden to existing infrastructure.
The internal migration is stoking tensions among communities. A UN report in April this year warned of climate factors causing potential social unrest. It said that limited economic opportunities for young people in crowded urban areas risk reinforcing feelings of marginalization, exclusion, and injustice, adding that this could fuel tensions between different ethno-religious groups or increase grievances vis-à-vis state institutions. Experts and aid groups recommend better resource management and targeted policies in areas reporting high migration. It is a choice the Iraqi administration needs to make, or its people will continue to suffer.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. We will be back next week with a brand new lineup, always bringing you the most recent updates, news, and ground reports from one of the world's most volatile regions. I'm your host, Ghadi Francis, signing off from Beirut. For more global news, keep on watching WION World is One.
India's